Hello and welcome to this week's video. My name is Anuska Taylor. Thank you so much for joining me. So today's video is for you. If you experience a lot of strain, fatigue in your voice, if your voice feels quite effortful, you feel like you have to work really hard to get your voice out. Maybe you're in a role where you speak for hours every day, like a teacher, or you're a trainer, or maybe you're on the phone in sales calls all day. But this is an essential component to finding more freedom and openness and effortlessness in your voice. And I promise you it's available to you. We have to just learn to get out of our own way, physically and emotionally. But from my perspective, the mind drives the physicality in the voice, which is why a lot of my work is around the psychology of the voice. However, for today's video, I'm going to focus more on this physical aspect of finding more freedom. So stay tuned if that resonates with you. Before I get going, if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And also, if you like my videos, share them, leave a comment, give me a thumbs up. And if you're interested in working with me, all the links are below. My signature 8-month private voice coaching program is really for you if you're ready to create the ultimate transformation in how you feel about your voice and how you sound, how you come across. I've got a brand new landing page, so I'll put the link below, but there's lots of other ways I can help you as well, from online courses through to a digital voice coach service as well. Today, I am talking about onset. Now, you may not know what onset is, or you've never heard of it, and that's all completely fine. I'm going to explain it to you. But regardless of whether you know what it is or not, you will be using it. The question is, what kind of onset are you using when you speak? Now, onset specifically refers to how you pronounce vowel sounds at the beginning of words. And you might think, who cares how I pronounce vowel sounds at the beginning of words? But your voice cares. And it's going to impact the ease, the functionality, the freedom, the openness, and the effortlessness in your voice. Now, there's 3 types of onset, which I'm going to talk about briefly now. And then I'm going to talk about the one that you're really aiming for, which is going to allow your voice to function, feel, and sound its best. And that's what we're always aiming for. With your voice, it's about how do we maximize, optimize, and enhance your voice so you still sound like you. We're not trying to make you sound like someone else, but we're really working with our body and our mind versus against it. And a lot of the time, our vocal habits are very unconscious. We are at war within, there's a conflict within. We want something, but we don't want it. We want authority, but we don't want it. We want to sound confident, but we fear sounding confident. So that then gets played out in the voice. So let's talk about the 3 types of onset. So at one extreme, we've got hard glottal attack. And this was demonstrated to me perfectly the other week by a lady who participated in one of my group voice coaching workshops. Again, she didn't know she was doing it. She's always spoken like that, and really, really common. I'm going to demonstrate these in a minute. I'm just going to tell you what they are first of all. So at one extreme, we've got hard glottal attack. The other side of the coin, the other extreme, is what we call an aspirate initiation, which is a lot of breathiness and airiness in the voice. So one is kind of very muscled and one is very airy. Now, what you're aiming for when you speak is somewhere in the middle, what we call an easy onset or a balanced onset. So it's a balance of air and muscle, which is essentially what we're looking for as a voice user. Whether you're a singer, whether you're a speaker, it's always a balance of air and muscle. If we go too far, too muscular, too airy, the voice doesn't like it. It won't function very well or for long periods of time. And that's when you start to get into all sorts of problems. So let's just talk quickly about hard glottal attack. So remembering that onset is how we produce vowel sounds at the beginning of words. So an example could be if I was going to say once upon a time, it would be once upon a time, and it's very hard. You know, I feel a lot of engagement in my throat. It feels very tense. It doesn't feel very nice for me personally. Now, you might speak like this, but not even realize it. That might be your habitual way of using your voice and you don't know any different. But I can guarantee if that's how you speak, your voice probably fatigues easily, you probably lose your voice quite frequently, and it's just not going to feel good by the end of the day. So that's that extreme. And what's happening there is we're slamming the vocal folds together, and it's creating a lot of constriction, a lot of tension. And so they're slammed together and then they abruptly release. And what happens here is we can't actually have a fluidity of the breath because the breath gets interrupted every time this happens. So it's really, really hard to have any smoothness, any fluidity, any kind of ease of the breath as well. And I'm sure you all know your breath is super important for your voice. So it's very choppy. The sound is very choppy. Once upon a time, and it's kind of quite harsh. Now, the other side of the coin is this aspirate initiation. So a lot of breathiness, a lot of airiness. Once upon a time. And it's very airy. And you might have a lot of that kind of H sound, that once upon a time. Now, again, if you are an actor, actress, and you're playing a role and you're deliberately giving that sort of Marilyn Monroe type voice, that's fine. But if this is your default way of speaking with a lot of air, a lot of breathiness, it's going to fatigue your voice. The reason being is when there's a lot of air, the vocal folds are not fully coming together. They're not vibrating fully, and they need to come together and vibrate fully for optimal use. So one is they're coming together and they're being slammed together, like really tightly and then coming apart. And the other is they're just not really coming together at all. Now, what we're aiming for then is the middle ground, which we call easy onset or balanced onset, where they're coming together, but they're not being slammed together, and they are able to vibrate with more freedom and ease. And that's when you get that ease of the voice, that smoothness of the voice, and it just works better. So we're going to try a little exercise now, and we're going to take the same sentence once upon a time. And we're going to go, first of all, to the extreme of the hard glottal attack, because I want you to feel this. A lot of voice work is about developing this kinesthetic awareness of your voice. A lot of the time, people come to me with a lot of tension and constriction in their voice, but it's just been normalized. You know, it's so habitual that having that constriction through their throat is just, well, this is just how my voice feels. And so I have to show them an alternative for them to really see that that isn't actually how their voice is meant to feel. So start to really tune into your voice. How does this feel? So let's first of all say once upon a time, but I want you to slam into it. So really heavy, really harsh, really choppy, once upon a time. And it doesn't feel good. You know, if you were to live there, which some people do, there's a lot of heaviness and harshness in their voice. Your voice is going to fatigue, it's going to tire and feel strained fairly quickly. So try that first of all, notice how that feels. And then I want you to go to the other extreme, where you're going to use this audible H, lots of air, lots of breath, once upon a time, once upon a time. And again, different to the other side, but there's still a lot of constriction within my instrument. And also the false vocal folds are normally also getting involved at this point as well. They're not meant to be involved for speech. So again, there's this unnecessary constriction and tension through the vocal mechanism. So the easy or the balanced onset, as I said, the vocal folds are now coming together, but they're not being compressed, they're not being slammed together and then coming apart abruptly. They're gently but fully coming together and fully vibrating. So this one, as I say, the vocal folds are coming together without compression, and they are able to then vibrate fully and easily, which is what you're aiming for. And from that place, you can access more power, more volume, more dynamics, all the things you want as a speaker. If the voice is very pressed or the voice is very airy, you have very, very limited choices with what you can do with your voice before your voice will start to pack up. So if we're going to find the easy or the balanced onset, one of the easiest ways to do it is to still take the H sound, but make it a silent H. So it's just giving us a little bit of space. So we're not then slamming into the chords, but we're also not just completely letting all the air run through either. So if you were to say that sentence, once upon a time. So I'm thinking H before each word, once upon a time. And it just stops me slamming into them, but it also stops me just pushing loads of air through as well. So once upon a time. Now, in terms of then linking words, and again, this takes a little bit of practice. What I see and what I noticed when I was doing this workshop the other week is the choppiness will continue throughout. So it'll be once upon a time, and it will be very harsh on each word. So what we want to do is learn to link the words with this kind of soft, gentle, easy onset. So again, this is going to take a little bit of practice, but just mentally sort of think about taking a sound from the word before and then using it to kind of bridge into the next word. So for example, once upon a time, it would almost be once upon the time. So the N of upon would go into the next word, once upon a time. So there's a fluidity versus once upon a time or once upon a time. So it can either end up being kind of mumbled, once upon a time, and everything just sort of is mushy and there's no clarity, or we can go the other side, once upon a time. But can we find a softness in terms of how we bridge between the words without going in really heavy and without completely letting go? So see if you can start to link the words while still articulating once upon a time. So there's a nice fluidity, there's a nice smoothness, and that is where your voice really wants to be. And it's just going to work better. It's going to last longer. You're going to have more access to your range, your dynamics, your expression, all the things you want as a speaker. This is really, really important. And it just takes some time. And I find that people tend to go on one side of the coin or the other. They're either very hard, there's a lot of strain and press in the voice, or the voice is very mumbled, there's a lot of air, there's not a lot of clarity and intelligibility. So we've got to find somewhere in the middle. We want that nice, easy onset. And we also want to learn to link the words so that the voice flows and the voice, there's a sort of smoothness between the words. From a musical terminology, if you're musical, it's sort of the difference between legato versus staccato. And so if you know that terminology, hopefully that makes sense. But it's that kind of idea, because then also the breath can flow. We're not losing all the air. When it's very breathy, all the air is just coming out. But the other side of the coin is the breath is just being chopped up. We want that nice freedom of movement of the breath as well. And that is when your voice is going to work its best. That is when you're going to have most control over your voice and most access to everything that you want. So have a go at this. Take a sentence. Remember, this is specifically on vowels. Play around with it and just see if you can start to find that balanced sort of easy onset and start to link words. Take short sentences and see if you can start to link words with that sort of smoothness versus just chopping up the words, or just not really enunciating at all, and it's all just one big mush of sound. So I hope that that's helped. If you have any questions or comments, please post them below. As I said, if you're interested in me helping you with your voice, it's really difficult to do this by yourself. I mean, it really is. And I'm not just saying that. I have had voice lessons most of my life. It's really hard to kind of see the picture when you're in the frame. So if you would like some support, please check out the links below. And if you want the ultimate transformation, please check out my new Speak with Impact landing page. But until next week, I will see you again.